Hey there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Today I am participating with Crystal Barrett over at Pineapple Papers in her Off the Board series. And what that is we choose inspiration from our Pinterest boards and then we create something based on that. So I've chosen these mixed media pieces and my intention was to go with a Christmas theme. I have a great picture that I want to showcase of my daughter next to her Christmas stocking when she was about 2, and her stocking is just about as big as her. And so that was my plan, but then you'll see here that I totally went with pink and blue, and I don't know what I was thinking, except for that this paper, I had started some mixed media on it at one point that had some pink and blue, although I could have easily put red and green over it. But anyway, I ended up doing this pink and blue or pink and turquoise from some Dylusions paint. So you saw me use some clear gesso from Art Basics, which is I think a Prima product, and I am using some Vicki Boutin mixed media paper. I've taped it all down there. It's already a little bit warped because I started to do something on it way back and then I didn't finish it, so I decided, well, I'm just going to go over it since I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff on this to kind of get that mixed media canvas look. And I didn't really know how this was going to turn out because I've never done this on paper. I've done it once on canvas and that's it. And I've watched a lot of like YouTube videos and such of people doing this kind of stuff, but it's always on canvas or wood. So I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but it worked great, and so I was very pleased with the outcome. I have some tissue paper there that's ripped up, and that's just from a roll of Hazel and Ruby tissue paper. You could use any tissue paper, it wouldn't matter. I just chose that basically because I wanted that black and white stripes or chevron, some music notes, and then some text print. And I am putting that on with Mod Podge. So in between all of these layers, everything is drying. So the gesso was dry. I put the Dylusions paint down with some water, and actually it wasn't paint, it was the spray mist. And I let that all dry, and now I am using some Mod Podge on the actual paper and on the back of the tissue paper, or actually it's on the paper, then the tissue paper goes down, and then you Mod Podge right over the top of that. And that will just make sure it's adhered really well to your surface. In this case, it's the Vicki Boutin paper. Usually it would be a canvas. So I'm gonna do that. I don't mix my Mod Podge with any water. It's just straight Mod Podge straight to the paper. And then I've got some tissue paper that just has some little silver sparkles on it. And I wanted to add a little bit more texture and a little bit of the shine, so that's why I decided to go ahead and add a little bit of that. And the sparkle from the silver little dots does show through. It's not overwhelming, and you kind of have to look for it, but every layer that you add to mixed media just adds to the overall look. So if you're not happy with your look, keep going, add stuff. I mean, right now mine looks like a hot mess. It looks like things are just slapped on all over the place. But in the end, I really, really like how it came out, and I think I might actually do this again. I didn't think I was going to actually use it in my scrapbook. I thought maybe I'd put it on the wall, but I really do like how it came out, and it probably will go on my wall for a little bit, and then it's going to go into a scrapbook. And I decided to use a picture of my daughter on her first birthday eating cake, and so this layout's going to be called Happy Birthday rather than Merry Christmas, which was what I was intending to use. So now I've got these stencils. I'm not sure where I got them from. I think a friend picked them up for me, and they have a little bit of stickiness on the back, which is really nice. In this case, it wouldn't really matter because mixed media is not a super clean look anyway. I've just mixed some texture paste with a little bit of white acrylic paint, and I'm pretty sure the texture paste would have been white anyway, but I wasn't sure if it would have a matte or a glossy look to it, so I went ahead and added that white to it just in case. You could add any color you want, wouldn't matter. And in the end, I am going to put a little bit of Nuvo Mousse rubbed right over the top to give it a little bit of a sheen. I'm going to clean that up, and then I'm going to add a little bit of navy blue to this batch of modeling paste, and I'm using a different stencil from the same set, and I'm going to go over that in some other places. And like I said, layer after layer, all of these layers are kind of drying in between, so the white is already dry, and now I'm going to go over it with the blue. And I cut out all of the drying stuff because you don't need to sit here and watch it dry. Watching paint dry is not very exciting, as you probably know. So now I've got my Nuvo paste. It's in this blue color, and I'm using a baby wipe. I just dip it into the Nuvo paste, and I'm lightly going over some of those white areas, and it's just taking off that bold white look. And then I'm going to do the same with the pink, and it kind of just brings out a little bit more color, and it makes the white so it's not quite so bold, which I really like how it turned out. It adds a little bit of a metallic look as well because the Nuvo Mousse is metallic. And these are my 3 little papers. Instead of making a Christmas tree, I decided to make a birthday cake, which is super simple. You just use 3 rectangles stacked on top of each other. You can make it in any size you want and any color you want. So I decided to go with this pink. 3 different shades, obviously, there. And I put it on the blue side to make it pop and to kind of bring in the pink. And there's a lot less of the pink on the paper than there is blue as far as mixed media. So that's pretty much why I went with that. And there is a photo there at the top of the page of my daughter. You can hardly see it because there's a glare, but you will see it coming up. Now I'm putting these down the same way. I'm using Mod Podge on the back of the paper and on the canvas or the surface of the mixed media piece that I'm working on, and then you Mod Podge right over the top. And right there I just had a little bit of a gunky piece of glue that I was pulling off, in case you were wondering what I was doing there. This middle piece of paper I know it's like Bo Bunny double dot, so it's actual pretty thick paper. It's not the thin stuff, and it works just fine. You can use that on your mixed media piece, no problems. And that top piece is actually another piece of mixed media that I did. It's just an offcut, and I can't remember what I used to make it. I think it was just Distress ink, and then I had used some VersaFine and some clear embossing powder because it does have a little bit of a texture on it. And then I'm just adding the candle at the top with a little orange flame, which kind of balances out that the photo has a lot of orange in it. So I know that seems really odd because it's such a tiny piece, but it works. Now I'm just taking some paint and splattering it right over the top. Like I said, layer after layer after layer. It just kind of builds on these pieces. If you want to find out a lot more about this, besides what I'm telling you, you can YouTube, I think it's Christy Tomlinson. She used to do a lot of she art, and if you don't know what that is, you can Google that. But she has some YouTube videos on how to do this, and she's a lot messier than I am. Which is not a dig at her at all. I just don't like to be messy. I don't like my hands messy, and she just sticks her hands in the gesso and in the modeling paste and wipes it over the stencils, and which, you know, hey, good for her. I'm just not a messy person. I don't like my hands messy, so doing mixed media is kind of a different thing for me. So these are some rub-ons, and they're super old. This particular pack that I'm using right here, they don't really work, so I switched to the other pack. And you can ignore the little photo on the left hand side. That is a photo that I've scrapbooked on a different layout, and I won't be using that today. I don't know why it's on my desk. So these rub-ons do work, and I'm testing it right there in the corner. That's pretty much all I'm doing there with that little flower. And I don't mind that the flower's on there. There's a lot of black and white in the background there. It doesn't bother me at all, and it's just going to stay there. And then I'm going to put these lines over the bottom of the cake and then over some other areas on the cake and off of the cake, just to kind of tie it all together. You want your background to kind of, you want the stuff on the top of your background to blend with your background, but you still want it noticeable. So you want it to look like it's part of the piece and not floating on the top. And so that's why those overlapping lines works really well. And then I went back to that old sheet again, trying to see if some of the little flowers will work. And they do eventually come off, but that's pretty much all I use is like 3 little flowers off of it. And then I think I'm going to just toss them because they're so old and I'm really struggling to get them onto the paper. And you know, it's not something that I want to take my time to mess with. So I'll probably just toss those and keep the pack that does work. Rub-ons, they do have, you know, they do have a life to them. You can, even if they're sealed, they only last for a certain amount of time. And not all rub-ons are created equal. Some you just barely touch them to the paper and they come right off. But these ones have been around a long time. So now I'm using some Pitt pens, and those are, I think they're India ink pens, and because I'm going over the Mod Podge, they stay wet for a little bit. They are permanent markers, but they stay wet long enough for you to kind of rub them in, and that's all I'm doing is I'm adding some shading. I'm not wanting like a firm defined line on these pieces. I just want to add a little bit of shading so it kind of gives a little dimension to the cake. And then I will add a little blue and pink to some of the areas on the background, just to give a little more texture and a little more definition. And my apologies there, that was my light board. I accidentally hit the button on it and it lit up. In the end, I really love how this came out. It's so different than what I normally do. And I think I might have to do it again. So I'm really excited that I could actually pull something off my Pinterest board and use it in a way that's totally different, and that I'm so happy with it. So thank you, Crystal, for the inspiration of actually working off my Pinterest board. So I've got several pins up there, and a lot of them are mixed media like this, and I've never done anything, well, I've done one canvas before, and never done anything for my scrapbook in this manner. So thank you so much for that inspiration. So you guys go check out Crystal's her YouTube channel today. It's Pineapple Papers. I will put a link in the description to her channel so that you can go see what she's making, and she may have other people playing along with her today as well. I'm not really sure, and she's doing this all month long, so she has a new video every day and various people playing along with her throughout the month. I'm hoping to do at least one more, and so we'll see what I end up doing. I don't know if I'll do another mixed media or if I'll do something else, but we'll see what happens. Now I decided, because everything has that look of being on the background and more flat. There's dimension because there's dimension to the modeling paste and that stuff, but things are not popped up off the page. I decided to go ahead and just stamp my background or my title. I don't stamp titles very often. When I do, it's on a separate piece of paper and cut out and then put onto my layout. But because this doesn't have that perfect look, the stamping, even if it's not exactly perfect or lined up, it doesn't matter. And in fact, in this particular case, I didn't want it lined up. I wanted it to have that kind of bouncing back and forth, up and down look. And I started with the H on happy and the Y on birthday because I wanted the Y to be the equal distance away from the edge of the birthday cake as the H is on its layer. I'm not sure if I explained that very well, but hopefully it made sense. And I think this is just a really fun way to do something different and to play with your mixed media products, learn more about how they go on the paper, and how to use them and to practice with your stenciling. I'm not the best at using stencils. I'm quite frequently make a mess under my stencil, but I'm getting better at it, and I think this is a good way to practice that as well. So this particular picture is just my daughter in her high chair on her first birthday, and she was eating, I think, cake, or yeah, I think it was cake actually, it wasn't pie. Sometimes we do pie, so I'm pretty sure this one was cake though. And she does have chocolate all over her face, or at least I believe it's chocolate. Now I've got this little banner piece, and that is just from Paper Studio at Hobby Lobby, and I decided to pop that up, and I am using those life-changing brushes that are pretty awesome with a little bit of Gina K ink, and I'm using a pink and a blue. Those first 3 pieces are going to have a little bit of a pink edge. The middle piece will have, or not middle, but the 4th piece will have pink and blue, and then the rest will have blue. And I just wanted him to have a little bit of ink on him, not a lot, because the background is so busy. I decided to leave them white other than that little bit of ink, just so that they look like they're supposed to be there and not like I just popped a white banner on. And I'm popping them up just on some foam, and I will use some liquid glue to adhere those down because you know, the adhesive on the ATG gun does not stick great to the foam, and it really doesn't stick great to the mixed media. So now I'm just using a black Sharpie, and I'm doing a little bit of a wobbly line around each layer of the cake, and I'm doing a little faux stitching there. And then I'm going to go all the way around the entire layout and do the same thing. A wobbly line, actually 2 lines around each thing. I find that if I do 2 lines, it looks like it's supposed to be wobbly. If I do 1 line, it looks like I just didn't know how to draw a straight line. So, and I also find that if you pull towards you, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to push the pen away from you. So I don't know if that would help you out if you're trying this technique, but it works better for me that way. And then I am leaving that white border all the way around, and that is where the tape was holding the paper in place. And you can tell that all of that mixed media didn't make my paper super warped or anything. And I don't know if that is in part because I taped it down. I suspect it is, but also in large part it's a really good paper that holds up well to mixed media. And there are tons of layers on here, you guys. So I highly recommend this Vicki Boutin mixed media paper for these types of projects. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of journaling, just says your first birthday. It's pretty self-explanatory otherwise. And then I will add some sequins scattered around on the page, and I'm just putting those on with liquid glue as well. And I think this time I'm using some, yeah, I'm using my fine line applicator, and so that has crystal lacquer in it, and that's made by Sakura, and it works really well. It's a lot like glossy accents. So it doesn't matter that there's a little bit of sheen to it because the Mod Podge has a sheen to it, and that's all over the page already. So if you wanted something that was matte, I wouldn't use this particular glue because it doesn't leave a matte finish. We're pretty close to the end of the layout. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this layout, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, I'd love for you to subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for the time that you take watching my videos, and thanks for subscribing. Close-ups are coming up in just a second, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.